So, welcome to another episode of Techies Banter. Today, we are going to be talking about a person who's probably, you can like him or hate him, but you cannot doubt the fact that he's one of the he's the most visionary person or the courageously visionary person in the world of technology. And the reason I say that is because, a lot of people, Elon Musk, when he was, way back, I don't know when he sold PayPal, which was probably 2002, in fact. So I think it was for about, he made about 170 or 80 million dollars out of it, which is kind of really like a lifetime's, exit. So rather than sit on his laurels, he decided to put it into two of the most dangerous ventures one could think of. One was space and the other was cars.
Here's what I keep coming back to, and in my head, I haven't gotten around it. Maybe I'm too small a thinker. SpaceX was not supposed to survive. Let's be honest.
Agreed.
Right?
Agreed.
Three Falcons failed.
Correct.
Right? They didn't work. He said when the 3 failed that he had only enough to make one more. Right? I mean, whatever, luck on his side, that 4th one worked. Okay. So one rocket. And that one rocket has today created a $2 trillion company in 20 years. I mean, that's crazy, right?
So interesting. Another one of his companies is Boring Company, right? So what he did was so simple. If you look at it, whenever you need to bore a hole, you're talking of a circle which is pi r square and the length of the tunnel, right? So he just said that if I reduce radius by half, actually cost of boring reduces by square of it, right? Pi r square, right? That is what you actually bore out.
And the other thing that I found very interesting when I was reading up on this was that, like you said, they're launching at a frequency. So somebody called it the cargo airline for space, right? Because when you want to send something into space, SpaceX is the way to go because it can launch things in and the frequency at which you mentioned. Also, the Starship one, which you're talking about, which he's invested into, costs $15 billion, right? Now, that's a moat which is so expensive that it's very difficult for competitors to get into that space. So that's what makes it near monopolistic, right? Because he's done it early. He's now investing the kind of money that most people are not even going to look at.
So, welcome to another episode of Techies Banter. Today, we are going to be talking about a person who's probably, you can like him or hate him, but you cannot doubt the fact that he's one of the he's the most visionary person or the courageously visionary person in the world of technology. And the reason I say that is because, a lot of people, Elon Musk, when he was, way back, I don't know when he sold PayPal, which was probably 2002, in fact. So I think it was for about, he made about 170 or 80 million dollars out of it, which is kind of really like a lifetime's, exit. So rather than sit on his laurels, he decided to put it into two of the most dangerous ventures one could think of. One was space and the other was cars. Okay. And it was about $100 million of his money. And we need to kind of look at his SpaceX venture in that light. And one of the other very, very interesting things about him was that I think somewhere, again in the 2000s, he wanted to do this big publicity gimmick about going to Mars. So he apparently traveled to Russia to buy some, ICBMs as launch vehicles. And then he very quickly realized that it was very, very expensive. So in true, people usually think analogously that, rockets are expensive and, how can I ever build it? But he kind of on his way back, as one urban legend goes, that, he wanted to do this whole publicity thing about going to Mars. So he went to Russia. He wanted to buy uh, ICBMs as launch vehicles. It was too expensive. So, typically everybody will say, okay, it's expensive. I won't do it. How can I do it? So on the way back, he started looking at the cost of making what goes into the rocket, the aluminum, the copper, and all of that. And very quickly, he figured out that the big chunk of the cost was actually the booster and the engines, which is actually the basis of his old Falcon 9 rockets. The fact that he was not the first one who figured out that reusable rockets was great, but he was the first one who got the method right. So I think that is what talks to the thinking of the man and the boldness of his vision and the granularity of his thinking. So he's not just a bold visionary, but he also kind of puts it down into, nuts and bolts and figures this out, which is also obviously the genesis for where we find SpaceX today and where he finds himself today. And so, that's one of the most admirable things about him, which is his thinking and the just audacity of his vision.
True. And I think that kind of the deconstruction of the cost brings me to what he's always accredited with, right? Which is a first principles architect. So it was so interesting. Another one of his companies is Boring Company, right? So what he did was so simple. If you look at it, whenever you need to bore a hole, you're talking of a circle which is pi r square and the length of the tunnel, right? So he just said that if I reduce radius by half, actually cost of boring reduces by square of it, right? Pi r square, right? That is what you actually bore out. So those kind of the back of the envelope first principle thinking makes his endeavors really awesome, in the sense that he can, by applying these principles, he is deconstructing the most complex thing into manageable stuff. And the execution may be extremely difficult, but suddenly you are excited about it. Oh yeah, it's doable. Let's reuse a rocket. That is what he did. Essentially, people were in the space world. People were treating rockets like disposable luxury goods. Right? No one was thinking of simply reusing a rocket. So these first principle thinking is something that makes him unique. He takes it to the scale. And the other thing which always comes to mind when I think of Elon Musk as a founder is that most of the other founders, it's like atoms versus bits, right? So they are looking at basically social networks, optimizing media clicks, ad revenue, and stuff like that. Well, this guy is talking of atoms, like the actual physics behind it. Most of his startups are solving how should I say? Core problems, kind of, right? Transportation or space launch, and doing stuff which is like absolutely visionary. So in that sense, the man behind this company, the SpaceX, or what we are talking of today, is maybe eccentric, maybe polarizing, but history will only remember the infrastructure that he left behind, right? The eccentricities don't matter. So I think that makes him really unique in that sense.
I'm not going to add anything to it because you guys have said it all. And the truth is, when we think about it from a PR, when you think about guys who have built large things, at some point in time, you don't remember whether they were likable or not. You
Correct.
do remember what they created, right? And that's how it is. So I don't know in the India context if Dhirubhai Ambani was likable or Mukesh Ambani is likable or not. But the fact is that they've built something and they've created legacy, and that's what people remember. And I think that's the only thing I'm going to say before we move to the second segment of this episode, where we're going to talk about SpaceX in detail. So, when the SpaceX IPO was happening, everybody was super excited. And a lot of people think SpaceX is a rocket company, right? But it's actually, I think, a telecom company which owns its own launch vehicles. And having said that, I'm going to hand over to Nilesh for more details.
Yeah, so the whole idea is, when we think of SpaceX and SpaceX IPO, which we'll touch upon the IPO details in the final section, we think of rocket company, as you correctly mentioned. But the fact is that there are kind of three verticals, or three companies, honestly, part of this. And let's call the first one, the rocket company, as launch, or the rocket part of it, right? And one has to look at the stuff that part of SpaceX has done. In 2008, they were the first one to launch a orbital class rocket, right? Privately funded orbital class rocket. They were the first one. In 2012, they did a private cargo delivery to ISS. Right, and they were asked for very recently also, when there was a trouble,
Right.
people. They asked SpaceX to help out. So similarly, the landing and reuse in 2015, 2017, they were able to do landing and reuse of a orbital class booster. Saviran mentioned about booster and engine and how it deconstructed. So that is the rocket part of SpaceX, right? And under that, the most famous one, the cheapest ever launch vehicle is your Falcon, right? And they reduce the cost massively, and were able to launch multiple satellites in space. And the current work they are doing is on something called Starship, and they are saying that Starship will reduce the cost by 60 times, right? I mean, that's immense. So already he created a very low cost orbital class vehicle, and now they are working on something which will reduce it by 60x. So that's the first company part of it. The second one is Starlink. Now, Starlink, which Sheetal you mentioned, is it a telecom company launching? It's absolutely that. So Starlink essentially started off with providing broadband in areas, rural areas, and where telecom was not able to provide broadband. Right? It started with that. It has today, Starlink, using Falcon, has 10,000 satellites, 10,000 satellites in space. And they are moving from just providing it to rural and areas where there is no broadband, to actually cities now, right? So Starlink is going to be your MVNO, telecom, or whatever you call provider, right? They already have more than 10 million customers, and it is a highly profitable company. So Starlink is part of it because they launched their own satellites. The third company, which is part of, and that kind of creates the whole triad, right, of companies under SpaceX, is XAI, right? And XAI, actually, one can say it is fantastic financial engineering. XAI was, acquired by SpaceX in Feb of this year. It's not long back. But honestly, it creates a very holistic kind of it's not just financial engineering, but it creates a holistic company and verticals which complement each other. So you have rockets launching satellites, you have Starlink providing bandwidth, and you have XAI, which is essentially providing compute, right? And XAI is going to provide gigawatt compute, they call it. They started, the whole XAI was supposed to do it for its own requirements, but XAI has got very recently 2 huge contracts. One is Anthropic pays 1.25 billion per month to XAI for compute, and Google recently signed, and they are paying 900 million per month for compute. So essentially, you have these 2 clients paying 2 billion, upwards of 2 billion per month to XAI for compute. They have something called, their compute engine is called Colossus, and they are using the latest gen NVIDIA Blackwell chips and stuff like that. And XAI provides the compute for its own purposes, and now it is selling it. It's not profitable today because Colossus required huge amount of investments. But this is your infrastructure. So you have launch, you have telecom, and you have compute, which is a compelling triad, right? So that was my bit on
Yeah,
what
it is.
SpaceX is.
So in fact, I mean, not much to say there, but after that, but the fact that they did 100 and some 65 launches in 2025, which like express translates into a launch every 53 hours, which means
Wow.
that's the amount of launching that, and which is far ahead of even of countries like China. It's very difficult to be ahead of China in anything, but the fact that they are able to do it repeatedly and correctly is huge. And Nilesh, to this whole point of this Colossus 1-2 at the data center, one of the other things that they're doing with their satellites is his next big punt, which is the reason for whatever the valuation is the fact that they're going to build, he says he's going to build data centers in orbit. And the way he's going to solve the energy problem is the solar energy from the sun. So he said that basically I'm only constrained by compute because of energy on Earth. So I'm going to get energy from the sun, which is like, it's like just completely outlandish today, but it might just be, an excellent example of first principle thinking 5 years from now.
And the other thing that I found very interesting when I was reading up on this was that, like you said, they're launching at a frequency. So somebody called it the cargo airline for space, right? Because when you want to send something into space, SpaceX is the way to go because it can launch things in and the frequency at which you mentioned. Also, the Starship one, which you're talking about, which he's invested into, costs $15 billion, right? Now, that's a moat which is so expensive that it's very difficult for competitors to get into that space. So that's what makes it near monopolistic, right? Because he's done it early. He's now investing the kind of money that most people are not even going to look at. So that's something that makes it interesting. On the other one, though, Nilesh, Starlink, where you were talking about, you're absolutely right. 10 million plus subscribers. But on a revenue version, they're not, how should I say, their revenue per user is actually dropping. Okay, so that's an interesting thing to watch out for because while the number of subscribers is going up, the use per subscriber, the value of subscription is dropping. So that might be some amount of tension and profitability squeeze in the future.
Yeah.
So while the valuation has been fairly good, I think that's something, and this is the only profitable one in the triad that you've put out. So if that profitability comes under squeeze, then there is a problem.
So I just have one point here is that the while that is absolutely true, but the plank that he is able to get to places where other people can't, which is like unconnected. And I think I'm sure it's more than 1 billion people still who are still don't have internet access in the world. So that market is so huge. And I remember that Microsoft was doing this research at one point that they will provide internet through TV waves, because TV is available everywhere. Didn't work out, frankly, because not at scale. So I just feel that while you're right, the realizations may be low, but that scale is so high and the unexplored like nobody else can get to where he can just because of, I think he's planning to, 10,000, he's planning to put 1 million satellites in the air now because of the data center. And just imagine where all Starlink and kind of reach. You'll probably be getting, if you're inside the Mariana Trench, you'll probably get internet even though you're dying. So something like that. So, it's just crazy.
So I have to add, to something Samiran mentioned, right? Samiran mentioned about the solar powered, taking energy from sun and powering the data centers in space. Not just that, this guy, the moonshots are incredible, right? So under SpaceX, they are thinking of doing a launch now from moon. Okay, so first you bring down the cost from Earth. Moon has low gravity, so the launch required, the orbital class launch that is required from moon is way
Correct.
cheaper.
Correct.
It can be easily landed. There is no, 1/6 gravity. So he's saying now we should look at launching from satellites from this thing powering the data centers from sun. So these, when you hear all these stories, this triad of companies becomes extremely interesting. And Sheetal, to your point, you're so right about when you talk of telecom companies, right? they live and die by what you mentioned, the revenue per user, ARPU,
Correct.
right? So I had friends in Reliance or Airtel. The one metric they look
Correct.
at is ARPU, and ARPU is going down. That's true, and the reason being that they will add more subscribers as they come into cities and towns and stuff like where traditional operators are there, but then the pricing,
Correct. Squeeze comes in.
the ARPU will go down because you are competing. But in the sense, so the what we call as the gross profit might go down, but it is still a profitable company, and as subscribers increase, it will remain a profitable company. So this makes this whole triad of companies under this IPO a very interesting bet to invest, honestly. And probably that is a good segue into our next section, where let's try to kind of demystify the IPO itself and talk about competitors and what were the shares and what is the raise and stuff.
When we discuss the IPO, one of the things, of course, the quantum of it, the valuations, and all the people who are making tons and tons of money is a great thing. I mean, Sequoia's made money, Google's made money, Peter Thiel's made a huge ton of money because of the exit. But I think one of the things which I find, again, very striking in this versus other IPOs is the fact typically retail investors get about 5 or 10% allocation in an IPO. But in the SpaceX IPO, that number was about 30%, which is huge. Which means that you are actually consciously distributing or giving opportunity for wealth creation to the ordinary citizen, which I think, which kind of either talks to his philanthropy or his great this thing, or to his whatever. He wants to be loved by all. But I think, but just as a sheer metric, the fact that 30% of people have the ability to invest, I think is a good thing.
I will remain skeptical on that one and his philanthropy and all of that. Much as I know you started with a fabulous introduction of Elon Musk, I will keep my comments at bay on that one. What is amazing is the size of the IPO for me. I mean, the last large IPO whose record he has broken is Aramco, which raised about $25 billion. I mean, this is 3x that, $75 billion, no small number. I thought that was phenomenal. Honestly, the other thing that I thought was interesting is that $75 billion means that one gentleman now controls more wealth than the GDP of most countries. I don't know if I'm very comfortable with that. That is a new chapter in economic history, but I don't know if the rich get richer and the poor get poorer is something I am very aligned with. That's all I'm going to say on this one, Savirat.
So I'll tell you what. So before Elon Musk came along, trillions was the number you usually associated with stars and galaxies and things you didn't know. So you didn't use trillion in any normal conversation, right? I mean, we were still struggling with the billions, and when we reached the hundreds of billions, that was like a big thing. But I mean, a trillion is a number which is like,
Correct.
Like I said, it's like galaxies and stars and, and Elon Musk. So that is where we are.
Nilesh, what do you want? Did you invest in the IPO or not? You're the only one who was could have done it.
No. I haven't. I wouldn't mind. So if we have to go through sheer numbers, I think it's interesting. I'll put it. There is some logic which says it's a solid buy signal versus some which is like a bit of skepticism, barring aside the trillion part. The fact is that when you look at the offering, as you said, it's the largest, right? There is 75 billion, 555 million shares at 135 per share. But the fact is, when you look at the market cap versus revenue, you're talking of 94x. Like, that's huge. the multiple is just huge. It would be 73 or 75 based on 2026 revenues because of these 2-3 deals which I mentioned, right, which are huge. So their revenue is going to increase, and hence the market cap to revenue will come down to 70s. So it on one side it looks crazy. I mean, why am I putting money in a company where the ratio is that
Makes
high?
no sense.
But then you look at parallel companies, right? The other rocket company is that one is at 130x. So it's not it's not unthinkable, right? And when you look at when from a financial lens, these are your 3 companies, okay? So one of them is your Sheetal, you mentioned strategic mode,
Correct.
right? It is a solid, your launch and rocket is your strategic mode. It will take a long time for anyone. I think Jeff Bezos has a company called Amazon Neo or something, right? They are planning to launch satellites, and they have got permission to launch something like, I think 6,000 satellites. These guys are already at 10. And Samiran mentioned, I mean, it will be even higher by the time these guys are the other guys are launching satellites. So it's a solid mode. That's your one mode. Second, you have a cash cow,
Correct.
which is Starlink, right? So you have a mode, you have a cash cow. Now XAI becomes what they call in financial terms optionality engine. Optionality engine is something where there is no downside if you have an optionality engine, and there is unlimited upside. So XAI is like that. They created this colossus, giga watt this thing compute, and for their own use. And now it can bring in a whole lot of money, and even if they don't get clients, they are anyway using it. There is really no downside. So that's your optionality engine. So when you put these 3 together, you have your moat, you have your cash cow, you have your optionality engine. It suddenly becomes a very promising investment, honestly.
So the only question I have for both of you is really, what does it really mean? Okay, and this is a question that bothers me. What does it really mean when a private citizen, okay, he's a private citizen who's building an infrastructure that a government depends on? That's scary, right? It's happening in our country partially, but it's not fully it's not that one individual. This is a private citizen building infrastructure. Government is depending on it. Defense department is dependent on it. I mean, that's a scary thought. Maybe I'm very old school in my thinking. Maybe I mean, this is strategic leverage of a different kind.
And you've already seen it at work. I mean, absolutely.
And Sheetal, I'll
it's good.
No, and I'll agree, Sheetal, what you're saying, and that was the solid downside also, which I initially mentioned by talking of this IPO. That this guy has done something very interesting with this whole structuring of the company. So he owns, I think, 40+% of the company, right? But he owns 85% of voting rights. So in the listing of SpaceX, he is the CEO, CTO, chairman listed there. So suddenly you become an individual who has 85% of the voting right. So that is scary. And the second scary thing, which this whole individual and how he can move governments now, is the fact that S&P, when they listed, S&P index essentially has, by the size of it, it should become part of the index. Can you beat that? But they have some requirement called seasoning. Right? So you can't include that company till they have like 4 quarters of profitable this thing, then 12 months of working. Then only you will go to index. But for NASDAQ, these guys put a condition that from day one, we will only list if you are part of the index. And what it actually does is, that is the scary part. Once you are part of index, essentially all the funds, your 401k, everyone is automatically investing in your company. So you are your retirement money is already locked into SpaceX, whether you like him or not. So that
and
is
which
scary.
it's very
That
scary,
definitely
more
is
scary, because his own prospectus says that there is no hope of the company making money till 2040, and that is also notional because it's all in the air. It's super expensive to build data centers in the sky, and it's not a proven technology so far, and everybody is convinced that it is going to work. So it is just so completely crazy. And if you kind of look at it another way, you would never put money in it. But then you look at the other, oh, it's Elon Musk, let me go.
So I'm going to end this one on just a whole bunch of questions, right? Here's what I keep coming back to. And I keep, in my head, I haven't gotten around it. Maybe I'm too small a thinker. SpaceX was not supposed to survive. Let's be honest, right?
Agreed.
Three Falcons failed.
Correct.
Right? They didn't work. He said when the 3 failed that he had only enough to make one more. Right? I mean, whatever, luck on his side, that 4th one worked. Okay. So one rocket. And that one rocket has today created a $2 trillion company in 20 years. I mean, that's crazy, right? I'm not even questioning whether it's overvalued, undervalued. I'm also questioning whether Musk is polarizing or not. The fact that he's opened it to 30% of retail investors means 30% retail investors will get burnt. Right? Yes, you put money behind a man, but you will get burnt if this doesn't go well. That means you've got, so protection of the retail investor has got screwed in this. So you're breaking so many norms, right? They could become firsts and it'll go down in history as firsts, or it could be lessons that we will learn a very, very hard way. So to me, it's scary, right? And
let me add, you can finish. Let me add to the scary part of it. One more, I forgot. It is also a special kind of a controlled company. Okay, by the way, other than the fact that he has 85% voting right, it is a special kind of controlled company which does not require board to have independent directors. So there is something called a controlled company. And essentially, when you have board of independent directors, who non-executive directors, independent directors, you have those checks and balances in place. So somehow all that has been circumvented and full voting rights through the kind of listing and prospectus they created. So I hear you. I mean,
it's too many firsts.
It is scarier
for the wrong reasons. Sorry, that's how I feel. And therefore, look, hey guys, we've put it all out there. Whether that excites you, whether that unnerves you, whether that tells you, hey, I'm going to go and put all my money into SpaceX, your decision. But please walk into it with your eyes wide open is all I'm going to say, right? That's all we can tell you. I mean, there it is, bare bone for you. And if...
Yeah, I think people...
Yeah, go ahead.
People only hear stories, right? Stories like there is this family house and some family-run investment firm in Delhi, which bought these shares, the ESOP shares, through secondary market sometime back, and they made 100x. Correct. With this listing, their investment is 100x. So all that sounds good. But like you correctly mentioned, the fact is it started, the share went up, it has now gone down. And many analysts are saying that it will go further down by the year end. Now, does it? I mean, every investment has its own, risks. We saw with Tesla itself. Sometimes, like you mentioned, the man influences the price a lot. Tesla lost a lot of share price just because of Elon Musk and his politics. At the same time, it did gain also.
That's the danger
a lot of value,
the personality
right?
linked to the company, right? I mean, it's completely, Elon Musk is Tesla, Elon Musk is SpaceX. So whatever he does in his personal life or anywhere else will affect the company.
Yeah.
So that's the risk you have to live with.
Yeah. And look at the risks. Samira, it's not just the person and the personality. You're investing in a company which you hope will deliver maybe in 20, 40, 50, 60, whatever, right?
It's sounding like my reconstruction project. Yeah. Like it will be left in my will only.
Correct.
Nobody will see that you value it.
Correct.
So whether you love the man, hate the man, like him, don't like him, whatever you've done with your money, if this episode made you think,
then it's a good thing.
continue to listen to our banter for the future.